At the mating ceremony, Blind Omega accidentally sat by the Alpha Apache. What he did left all silent. The twin suns of Red Mesa were slowly sinking behind the jagged cliffs, casting long, burnt orange shadows over the frontier town. Dust swirled in the light, and the air smelled of scorched earth and metal from the distant mining outposts. It was the season of the mating ceremony, a festival older than any living memory on this planet, a ceremony where warriors and leaders demonstrated courage, skill, and honor. It was not just tradition, it was a test, a proving ground. Kale, a young human Omega, moved carefully among the crowd. He was blind, but that never stopped him. Years of living in wandering caravans, navigating deserts, canyons, and settlements with only his other senses, had made him alert, cautious, and surprisingly precise. His cane, fitted with subtle vibrations, guided him over rocks and loose soil as he followed the voices of spectators, the sound of hooves and the distant hum of hovercraft. He had never attended a mating ceremony before. He didn't fully understand all the rules, but he had been told this was an event that shaped futures, alliances, partnerships, and respect. Today, he wanted to witness it, to see, in his own way, what courage looked like. Kale's ears caught the sharp voices of guards directing participants, the murmur of wealthy traders, and the low hum of tribal instruments. He sensed the tension in the air, a mixture of excitement, fear, and expectation. Some of the people gathered here were humans like him, but many were Apache alien hybrids, fierce warriors with cybernetic enhancements and intricate tribal markings. They moved with a confidence born from strength and centuries of surviving the harsh frontier. As Kale stepped carefully, one misstep sent him toward the wrong bench. Without realizing it, he lowered himself onto a seat reserved for none other than Dakota, the Alpha Apache. The moment his body settled onto the bench, a ripple went through the crowd.
Voices fell silent, heads turned.
Kale's presence there broke rules older than any of the settlers. He froze, realizing only too late that he had made a serious mistake. Dakota, standing nearby, was a giant of a man. His cybernetic arm glinted in the fading sunlight, and the traditional paint along his face marked him as the most respected warrior on the planet. His eyes narrowed at the blind human who dared occupy his seat. The crowd held its breath, waiting for a reaction. Kale straightened his back and with calm certainty said, "I am sorry, Alpha. I did not see. I am blind and did not know." The amphitheater remained silent. Some of the spectators whispered among themselves, others simply stared. No one had ever seen an Omega, and a blind one at that, step so boldly into the center of a tradition-bound ceremony. Most expected fear, trembling, maybe even a panicked retreat, but Kale showed none of it. Dakota's gaze softened slightly, curiosity replacing the initial tension. He could sense the honesty in the young Omega's voice, the absence of fear. There was something unusual about this human, something that suggested inner strength rather than weakness. A guard stepped forward, hand on a weapon, but Dakota raised a single arm. "Let him stay," he said, his voice deep and steady. The words were unexpected. Murmurs rose among the crowd. Many were confused, some suspicious, others intrigued. Kale carefully shifted, making sure he was respectful and unobtrusive. He could feel the energy of the crowd around him, the vibrations in the ground from the gathering hover horses, and the subtle hum from the ceremonial instruments. He could not see the spectacle, but he could sense its rhythm, its power, and the weight of tradition that filled the canyon. The ceremony began in earnest. A group of warriors stepped forward to perform the rite of strength, a demonstration of balance and agility across narrow beams and hovering platforms. Kale could hear the clanging of armor, the whoosh of controlled jumps, and the gasps of the crowd as participants teetered dangerously above the canyon floor. Dakota watched him closely, noting how the Omega remained calm, listening, absorbing, adjusting with every subtle sound and vibration. Kale's posture was alert, but not tense, confident, yet humble. It was rare to see anyone, sighted or blind, maintain such composure amidst the energy of the ceremony. A sudden challenge was announced. One of the lesser-ranked warriors had misstepped and was falling from a beam. Before anyone could react, Kale reached out, instinctively, guiding the warrior's balance with precise, subtle directions shouted aloud. The participant regained footing. The spectators were astonished. This blind human had just intervened with perfect timing, his instincts sharper than most fully sighted warriors. The first trial ended, but Kale's presence had shifted the mood. Whispers now spoke of him not as an intruder, but as someone worthy of attention. Some still doubted, but the energy surrounding him had changed. Where there was tension before, there was now curiosity. During the next trial, the test of honor, Participants had to navigate a narrow canyon path filled with unpredictable obstacles, some mechanical, some natural, designed to test both bravery and cleverness. Cale's senses guided him. He felt vibrations through the ground, heard the faintest echoes of shifting rocks, and interpreted them in real time. Each step was precise. No one could see him, but the sound of his movements suggested calm confidence. Dakota remained beside him, an unusual expression on his face, a mix of respect and intrigue. Few humans, and especially few Omegas, could maintain such poise in the face of these challenges. The Alpha's instincts told him this blind Omega might possess something special, something that could not be measured by strength alone. Cale paused briefly to listen to the distant hum of energy traps, mechanisms placed to challenge participants. He read the vibrations in the ground, feeling the rhythm of the canyon itself. Step by step he advanced with uncanny precision, moving through the trial without error. Spectators leaned forward, some unsure whether to be amazed or skeptical. By the end of the first part of the ceremony, Cale had done something unexpected. He had arrived as a blind, untested Omega. He had misstepped, accidentally sitting beside the Alpha Apache. Yet by remaining calm, respectful, and observant, he had begun to earn attention, even admiration. Dakota finally nodded subtly, almost imperceptibly, acknowledging Cale's composure. It was not public praise, not yet, but a quiet recognition. The Alpha had seen many brave warriors, but this human, blind, humble, and observant had captured his attention in a way no one else had. As the sun dipped further, painting the cliffs in deeper red and gold, Cale felt the hum of the canyon's energy and the pulse of the gathering. The amphitheater had grown quiet, every spectator sensing that something unusual was unfolding. A blind Omega, against all tradition and expectation, had claimed a place beside the Alpha Apache, not by force, not by challenge, but by calm courage and respect. The first part of the ceremony closed with a moment of silence, broken only by the soft wind through the canyon and the distant calls of ceremonial horns. Cale knew the coming trials would be harder, but he also understood something important. Strength did not always come from sight or weaponry. Sometimes it came from heart, courage, and the ability to remain steady when all around you expected fear. And as the evening sky darkened into shades of deep purple and stars began to sparkle, the crowd, though still whispering, could sense the shift. The blind Omega had arrived by accident, but he had left a mark. Every eye turned toward the stage, curious about what this quiet human would do next. For Cale, the night was only beginning, and the frontier world of Red Mesa was about to witness a story that would challenge every expectation about courage, tradition, and the unexpected heroes who rise when no one is looking. The dawn broke over Red Mesa, pale sunlight spilling across the red cliffs and canyon floor. The amphitheater was already alive with the hum of activity. Hover horses stomped against the soil, their anti-gravity stabilizers humming softly. Warriors sharpened weapons, and spectators found their places on the rocky terraces. Today the ceremony continued, moving beyond introductions and gestures of respect into the tests of courage, where participants showed their skill, strategy, and bravery. Cale, the blind Omega, stood near the edge of the arena with Dakota, the Alpha Apache. He could feel the vibrations of the ground beneath him, each tremor carrying hints of movement from the spectators and the competitors. His cane hummed faintly, scanning for obstacles in the immediate area. The amphitheater's energy was tense, thick with anticipation. Every participant knew the tests would separate the reckless from the truly brave. The first challenge was announced. A hover canyon course, narrow platform stretched over deep chasms, weaving between rock formations. Some platforms moved slightly, others were suspended by invisible energy fields. Warriors had to leap, balance, and dash across them, reaching the far side without falling or triggering alarms that would mark them as unworthy. Cale listened carefully as the other competitors lined up. The Alpha Apache beside him scanned the course with sharp eyes, assessing each participant. "Stay close," Dakota murmured. "Watch. Learn. You may need every sense." Cale nodded. He had no illusions about this trial. He was blind, yes, but he had learned to read vibrations, echoes, and subtle changes in airflow. Where sight failed, his other senses became instruments of precision. The first participant leapt from the starting platform. A cheer erupted, but halfway across, a misstep sent the competitor teetering. A minor alarm flashed on the platform, signaling failure. The crowd gasped. Cale could feel the tension ripple through the air, as though the canyon itself was watching. When it was his turn, he stepped forward. The crowd held its breath, unsure what a blind Omega could do in this dangerous trial. Kale's boots touched the platform lightly, each step deliberate. He listened to the faint hum of the moving platforms, feeling the vibrations from the hovering engines. The wind shifted slightly, brushing against him and indicating gaps in the platforms. Step by step, Kale advanced, guided by sound, vibration, and instinct. The spectators grew silent, watching this unusual display. Some leaned forward, whispering, "How can he see?" Others simply held their breath, captivated by his calm determination. At one point, a platform tilted unexpectedly. Kale's cane hummed, signaling the shift. He adjusted his weight and moved with perfect balance, his foot landing firmly despite the instability. A murmur of astonishment ran through the amphitheater. The blind Omega was keeping pace with the sighted warriors, and not just keeping pace, he was excelling. Midway through the course, Kale felt the subtle energy of a hover trap, a circular field designed to knock participants off balance. He stopped for a fraction of a second, listening to the faint vibration it sent through the stone beneath. Then, with precise timing, he moved forward, stepping carefully around the trap. Every action was deliberate, every movement calculated. The final platform was the most dangerous, narrow, suspended over a deep chasm with a swirling energy field below. Kale approached it slowly. He could hear the hum of the field, feel the subtle pull of gravity variations from the hover engine stabilizers. With a deep breath, he placed each foot carefully, letting his cane scan the edges. The crowd was utterly silent. No one had expected him to make it this far. Step by step, he crossed the last gap. When he landed safely on solid ground, a wave of awe swept through the amphitheater. Dakota's eyes gleamed with quiet approval. The Alpha had witnessed many warriors, but none had combined courage, patience, and precision in such an unusual way. Kale didn't celebrate, he simply straightened, calm, and composed, as though this were exactly where he was meant to be. The next part of the ceremony tested mental courage and problem-solving. Participants had to retrieve a ceremonial artifact from a cavern filled with traps and illusions. Some were mechanical, some natural, all designed to test awareness, intuition, and bravery. Many competitors hesitated at the entrance, unsure how to proceed. Kale moved forward with confidence. His blindness was an advantage here. He relied on sound and touch, which allowed him to sense traps others overlooked. A faint echo indicated a swinging obstacle. A subtle vibration told him of loose ground. Step by step, he avoided danger, slowly but steadily moving toward the center of the cavern. As he reached the artifact, he sensed movement behind him. A rival warrior tried to sneak ahead, hoping to claim the prize first. Kale didn't need to see him. The subtle sound of boots against stone and the shift in the air gave him the timing he needed. He spoke softly, a warning more than a shout, and the competitor froze, realizing Kale had detected him. The Omega carefully retrieved the artifact, returning safely to the cavern entrance. The spectators were stunned. A blind Omega had navigated one of the most dangerous challenges, demonstrating calm intelligence, bravery, and strategy. Murmurs ran through the amphitheater, voices saying things like, "He is different," and "I have never seen such courage." Even some of the rival warriors could not hide their respect. Dakota approached Kale as he exited the cavern. "Few have courage, fewer have insight," the Alpha said quietly. "You have both." His words were simple but heavy with meaning. In that moment, Kale realized he was no longer just a spectator. He had earned a place in the ceremony's story. The final trial of the day was called the Challenge of Honor. It was a test of leadership, judgment, and loyalty. Participants were paired with mentors or allies, having to work together to overcome physical obstacles while making strategic decisions under pressure. Kale was paired with a younger apprentice who had never faced such challenges. Together, they navigated the course, Kale guiding with careful instructions and intuition, and the apprentice following with trust. When they reached the final obstacle, a narrow bridge suspended over a canyon with a gusty wind, Kale felt the vibrations of the air currents. He instructed the apprentice to step carefully and move in rhythm with the gusts. Step by step, they crossed safely, completing the trial with precision. The crowd erupted into whispers of admiration. Dakota's face reflected a mixture of pride and curiosity. As the ceremony wound down, Kale stood beside Dakota, feeling the weight of the day's events. He had arrived as an untested blind Omega, accidentally breaching protocol, yet by the end of the trials he had demonstrated courage, intelligence, and calm composure. He had earned the respect of the Alpha and the attention of the crowd, not through violence or boasting, but through steadfast determination and quiet strength. The amphitheater fell silent as the sun finally disappeared behind the cliffs. The stars began to shine above Red Mesa, and the wind carried whispers of awe and astonishment. Kale felt a subtle energy, almost like the canyon itself was acknowledging his success. He did not seek recognition, but in the silence, he knew he had changed the perception of what it meant to be brave, strong, and honorable. Dakota finally placed a hand on Kale's shoulder, a gesture of approval and trust. No words were necessary. The crowd, sensing the unspoken bond between the Alpha and the blind Omega, remained silent, awe-filled. In the eyes of the frontier settlers, something extraordinary had happened. Kale's heart did not race with pride or arrogance. Instead, it was steady, calm, and ready. The trials had tested him, but more importantly, they had shown him that courage was not about sight, strength, or tradition alone. It was about clarity of mind, honesty of heart, and the ability to stand firm when expectations were against you. As the night deepened over Red Mesa, Kale and Dakota walked back through the amphitheater together. The Alpha spoke softly, his voice carrying authority and approval. "The others may doubt, but I do not. You have proven something today, Kale. Something rare, something important." Kale nodded, listening to the sounds of the crowd dispersing, the faint hum of hover horses, and the wind through the canyon. He could not see the smiles or gestures, but he could sense the respect growing quietly around him. This was only the beginning of the mating ceremony, and he knew the next challenges would be harder, testing more than just courage. But for now, he had earned a place in the story, a blind Omega standing beside the Alpha Apache, calm, capable, and ready for whatever came next. The afternoon sun hung low over Red Mesa, its orange glow painting the canyon walls in sharp lines and deep shadows. The amphitheater was quieter now, the morning excitement settling into a tense anticipation. Kale, the blind Omega, had already surprised everyone with his performance in the trials of courage. But the ceremony was far from over. The next phase was not just about skill. It was about strategy, loyalty, and judgment. It was here that alliances would form, and the strength of character would be revealed. Kale followed the vibrations beneath his boots, his cane humming faintly as it scanned the uneven ground. Beside him, Dakota, the Alpha Apache, moved with measured steps, his cybernetic arm catching the light as he observed the gathering. Around them, other warriors and competitors readied themselves for the next challenge, the Labyrinth of Shadows, a maze carved into the canyon walls, filled with shifting pathways, hidden traps, and illusions designed to confuse even the sharpest minds. "This is more than just a physical test," Dakota said quietly, his voice low but commanded. "This is about awareness, about understanding danger before it finds you, about leading others." He had learned long ago that blindness did not mean weakness. In the labyrinth, he would rely on sound, vibration, and instinct, the same tools that had helped him survive countless desert nights. He could not see, but he could feel the rhythm of the canyon, the subtle shifts in airflow, the faint hum of energy traps, and the movements of others around him. The first wave of competitors entered the labyrinth. Screams echoed from the twisting passages as participants triggered traps or lost their way. Kale took a deep breath, centering himself. Step by step, he entered the maze. Immediately, he felt the subtle changes in the ground, loose gravel, hidden depressions, narrow ledges. The labyrinth was designed to disorient, but Kale's heightened senses allowed him to navigate with confidence. As he moved deeper, he heard voices. Another participant, a young warrior, struggling. The labyrinth tested not just individual skill, but cooperation. Kale approached carefully, speaking softly. Up to the left. Now jump forward. His instructions were precise, confident, and without hesitation. The young warrior followed, guided entirely by Kale's voice. Together, they avoided the traps that had caught others, moving deeper into the maze. Meanwhile, Dakota watched from the entrance, his eyes sharp and calculating. He had seen many warriors in his lifetime, but the Omega's calm presence and strategic thinking stood out. The Alpha could sense something unusual. This was not just courage, it was intuition, the ability to read situations before they unfolded. Halfway through the labyrinth, Kale sensed movement nearby. A rival group of warriors seeking to claim the labyrinth's prize approached. Kale could not see them, but he could hear the subtle sounds of their boots, the faint vibration of their weapons against armor, the way their voices carried in the twisting corridors. He moved silently, positioning himself and his apprentice to avoid detection. Suddenly, one of the rival warriors tripped a pressure plate, triggering a small trap that released smoke and light, designed to disorient anyone nearby. Kale did not panic. He adjusted his position, moved the apprentice behind a safe wall, and whispered instructions to avoid the hazard. The rival group, relying on sight, stumbled blindly, while Kale and his companion navigated smoothly. By the time they reached the central chamber, where the ceremonial artifact waited, Kale had already proven something remarkable. The blind Omega had led another warrior safely through the most confusing and dangerous part of the labyrinth. He had shown leadership, calm judgment, and a strategic mind. The artifact glowed softly in the center of the chamber, and Kale approached it carefully, feeling the subtle energy fields around it. He picked up the artifact with steady hands, noting its weight and position. The apprentice looked at him in awe, realizing that the blind Omega had not only survived the maze, but had guided him safely through it. Kale's presence had transformed fear into confidence. As they exited the labyrinth, the crowd that had gathered outside fell silent. Many expected disaster, many doubted Kale's ability, but he had succeeded where sighted warriors had struggled. The spectators whispered, astonished. Dakota approached, placing a hand on Kale's shoulder, the gesture carrying more meaning than words. Few have wisdom. Fewer still have courage tempered with strategy. You have both, he said. The crowd, sensing the Alpha's approval, watched with growing respect. Kale's reputation was spreading, not through arrogance but through quiet competence. Even rival clans could not ignore his abilities. The next test was called the Trial of the Guardian. Participants had to protect a symbolic figure, a young apprentice, from simulated attacks while navigating an obstacle course. The trial measured not just strength or speed, but judgment, loyalty, and the ability to anticipate danger. Kale's apprentice, inspired by the Omega's calm leadership, followed instructions perfectly. As simulated attacks began, Kale listened. He could hear the whir of mechanical drones, the subtle shift of weight from opponents, and the faint energy signature of laser traps. With careful guidance, he positioned himself and the apprentice to block attacks without confrontation. Every movement was deliberate. Every instruction was clear and precise. One drone swooped low, its sensors locked onto the apprentice. Kale reacted instinctively, positioning himself between the drone and the young warrior. He moved with balance and confidence, guiding the apprentice to safety. The drone passed harmlessly, its programmed challenge overcome. The crowd murmured in disbelief. A blind Omega had successfully led another participant through a deadly trial. Meanwhile, rival participants struggled with the same challenge. Some relied on force, some panicked, some hesitated. Kale's calm and strategic approach highlighted his strength. He did not rely on sight or brute force. He relied on perception, judgment, and courage. By the end of the Trial of the Guardian, Kale had not only protected the apprentice, but had demonstrated leadership that rival warriors could not match. His bond with Dakota grew stronger. The Alpha recognized that Kale's presence was valuable not just in trials, but in uniting participants, earning respect, and diffusing tension. As the sun began to set, painting the canyon walls in hues of red and gold, the final part of the ceremony's day approached, the Council of Honor. Leaders, warriors, and spectators gathered to witness the outcomes, to see who would be recognized for courage, skill, and integrity. Kale and Dakota approached the council together. Whispers ran through the crowd. Some doubted the Omega's worth. Some were curious. But as Kale stepped forward, the council's attention focused entirely on him. Dakota spoke first, his voice calm but commanding. This Omega arrived by chance, but his actions speak louder than chance. He has led, protected, and navigated challenges that would test even the strongest warriors. The council members looked at Kale, their expressions a mix of curiosity and admiration. Kale's calm composure, his quiet confidence, and his clear competence had shifted perceptions. Where some saw a blind, untested human, others now saw courage, strategy, and honor. One council member, an elder with cybernetic enhancements along her arms, leaned forward. "Your actions are unusual," she said. "A blind Omega leading others, guiding them safely through peril, it is rare, yet the results cannot be denied." Kale nodded respectfully. "I did what I could," he said simply. "I followed what I sensed, and I helped those who trusted me." Dakota placed a hand on Kale's shoulder, a gesture visible to all. "He is brave. He is wise. He has my respect," the Alpha declared. The amphitheater fell silent for a long moment, every eye on the two of them. Then, slowly, murmurs of approval grew into applause. Not the loud, raucous cheer of spectators seeking spectacle, but a deep, resonant respect that filled the canyon. Kale felt the vibrations of the canyon echoing that respect. He did not seek recognition, did not expect it, but the acknowledgement of his courage and leadership grounded him. The Omega had arrived by accident, but he had proven himself not by sight or strength alone, but by calm intelligence, courage, and integrity. As the night fell over Red Mesa, stars twinkling over the canyon's edge, Cale and Dakota walked together through the amphitheater. The trials had tested courage, judgment, and leadership. They had shown that strength comes in many forms, not just muscle, not just sight, but perception, wisdom, and the heart to act when it matters most. Cale knew the next day would bring even greater challenges. Rival clans would push harder, traditions would demand obedience, and the final tests of the mating ceremony would reveal the true character of every participant. But for now, he had earned a place in the story, a blind Omega standing beside the Alpha Apache, respected, capable, and ready to face whatever came next. The crowd's whispers of awe followed him through the amphitheater. The frontier world had already begun to remember the blind Omega, not as a mistake, not as an intruder, but as a symbol of unexpected courage, strategic mind, and steadfast heart. And in the quiet of the canyon night, Cale felt a sense of calm, knowing he had taken another step into a story that would be remembered long after the twin suns set again. The morning sun rose over Red Mesa, casting a golden light across the rugged canyon walls. The amphitheater was alive with movement once more. This was the final day of the mating ceremony, and the tension in the air was thick. Warriors, spectators, and tribal leaders gathered to witness the final trials, the ceremonial honors, and the acknowledgement of courage. Today would decide who earned respect and who would be remembered in the legends of the frontier. Kyle, the blind Omega, stood beside Dakota, the Alpha Apache. The events of the past 2 days had already impressed the crowd. Cale's calm courage, strategic mind, and leadership in the trials had earned whispers of admiration. But today, the stakes were higher. The challenges would test not just strength or skill, but character, loyalty, and the ability to inspire others. The first trial of the day was called the Trial of Unity. Participants were required to navigate a series of obstacles while assisting others. The goal was not to win individually, but to demonstrate teamwork, guidance, and protection. Cale's apprentice, who had gained confidence under his guidance, would accompany him. Together they stepped forward into the arena, feeling the vibrations of the ground beneath them. Hover platforms moved unpredictably. Narrow beams stretched over deep chasms, and energy traps flashed intermittently. Competitors who relied on sight stumbled. Cale, however, moved deliberately, using his cane to sense edges, vibrations, and subtle air currents. His instructions were calm and precise. Step forward slowly, pause, now to the left. The apprentice followed without hesitation. As they progressed, Cale sensed a rival warrior approaching from behind. The competitor tried to cut ahead, hoping to claim recognition first. Cale's intuition warned him. He positioned the apprentice behind a stable platform and quietly whispered guidance. When the rival reached the narrow beam, Cale's directions allowed them to cross safely, but prevented the rival from advancing faster. The subtle maneuver demonstrated not just caution, but wisdom. Cale's calm presence turned potential chaos into orderly progress. By the time they reached the center of the course, the audience was silent, captivated by the blind Omega's calm leadership. Even rival clans who had doubted him began to murmur in admiration. Dakota's eyes gleamed with pride. The Alpha had seen strength in many forms, but Cale's courage, patience, and insight were extraordinary. Next came the trial of challenge, a test of decision-making under pressure. Participants were faced with a scenario where they had to protect a symbolic figure while choosing between multiple paths, some easier but riskier, others more dangerous but leading to honor. Cale's keen senses allowed him to detect subtle cues, vibrations from unstable ground, the hum of energy traps, and shifts in air pressure indicating mechanical hazards. Stay close, Cale instructed his apprentice. The left path is unstable. Move slowly. Step lightly. Every movement was deliberate. The apprentice followed perfectly, trusting Cale's judgment entirely. As they reached the midpoint, a rival clan tried to block their path. Cale could not see them, but he sensed their presence, timing, and intent. He guided the apprentice to a narrow side passage, avoiding confrontation but ensuring the symbolic figure remained safe. The crowd's astonishment grew with every step. Here was a blind Omega, not just surviving but excelling. He had guided another through danger, made strategic decisions under pressure, and done so without hesitation or fear. His calm demeanor was contagious. Even the Alpha's rivals could not deny the competence and courage of this unusual participant. Finally, the last trial approached, the Council of Recognition. Participants were to stand before the assembled leaders, demonstrating their courage, integrity, and contribution to unity. The amphitheater was packed. Tribal elders, warriors, and settlers watched with anticipation. Kale and Dakota walked side by side to the center, the blind Omega feeling the vibrations of every footstep, every heartbeat, every murmur from the crowd. Dakota spoke first, his voice carrying authority and respect. This Omega arrived here by accident, sitting where he was not meant to, but his actions, courage, and guidance over the past days have earned my respect. He has led, protected, and inspired others when tradition and expectation demanded obedience. He has proven himself not by sight or strength alone, but by heart, mind, and courage. The crowd was silent, silence heavy with awe. Few had expected such words. Few had imagined a blind Omega could become a figure of admiration among the warriors and leaders of Red Mesa. Murmurs spread slowly, curiosity and respect growing louder, but still tempered by disbelief. Kyle stepped forward, keeping his calm posture. "I did what I could," he said simply. "I followed what I sensed and helped those who trusted me. That is all." His voice was steady, humble, yet carried an unexpected authority. One council member, an elder woman with glowing cybernetic eyes, leaned forward. "You have exceeded all expectations," she said. "Where others rely on sight, you relied on insight. Where others act with strength, you act with judgment. You have proven that courage and wisdom can come from the most unexpected places." As she spoke, Dakota placed a hand firmly on Kale's shoulder, a gesture of trust, respect, and alliance. The crowd remained silent for a moment longer, absorbing the significance. Then, slowly, applause began. First hesitant, then stronger, until the amphitheater erupted in a chorus of admiration. Kale's calm, quiet courage had transformed initial doubt into respect. Even the rival clans who had questioned his presence could not deny the truth. A blind Omega, arriving by accident, had led, guided, and inspired. He had turned expectation on its head and proven that courage and honor are not limited to tradition or sight. The final ritual of the mating ceremony was symbolic, the acknowledgement of the brave. Dakota spoke to the crowd, raising Kale's hand slightly. "This Omega is a reminder that strength comes in many forms. Today, we honor him as one of the bravest among us. Let his courage inspire all who witness it." The amphitheater fell silent once more, but the silence was different, filled with reverence and reflection. Then cheers erupted, not wild or chaotic, but deep and resonant, echoing off the canyon walls. The legend of the blind Omega was born. Kale felt the vibrations of the applause, the subtle hum of excitement in the air. He had arrived by mistake, yet he had earned a place beside the Alpha Apache. Respect was not demanded, it was given, earned through courage, wisdom, and calm action. As the ceremony concluded, Kale and Dakota walked together toward the edge of the canyon, the twin suns setting behind them. The crowd dispersed slowly, still murmuring in amazement. Kale could not see the expressions on their faces, but he could feel the shift in energy, an acknowledgement of something extraordinary. Dakota spoke softly, almost to himself, but loud enough for Kale to hear. "You have changed how this frontier will remember bravery, not by sight, not by strength, but by heart and judgment. That is something few achieve in a lifetime." Kale nodded. The journey through the mating ceremony had tested him, challenged him, and revealed the depth of his own courage. He had faced the impossible and led others safely through it. He had forged respect where there had been doubt, and he had formed an unspoken alliance with Dakota, a bond built on trust and shared trials. As night fell, stars twinkling over Red Mesa, Kale stood beside the Alpha, the blind Omega who had arrived by accident but would leave a lasting mark on the frontier. The crowd's whispers would turn into stories, stories into legends, and the tale of courage, strategy, and heart would be told for generations. Kale did not need applause or recognition. He had learned that true courage is measured not by others' eyes, but by the calmness of one's heart, the steadiness of one's actions, and the willingness to lead when it is most needed. And in that moment, beside Dakota, he knew he had done exactly that. The night was quiet, the canyon serene, and the twin suns replaced by stars. A blind Omega and an Alpha Apache side by side had earned the respect of all, proof that courage, honor, and wisdom come in many forms, and that even the most unexpected hero can leave a legacy that will never be forgotten.